And so I was doing it for a little bit. I would travel around Dallas with a table and books. I would just order them off Amazon. I had no idea what I was doing. I typed in the top book subscription boxes to find what they use because we were in the same category. And the link I clicked was Oprah, top subscription boxes, and why was BLACKLIT on there? That was me in the middle of the night. And I was like, I called my friend, I'm like,
wow.
Thank you, Oprah. Called my mom, like, and I was like, okay, this might be a real thing.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Minor Detail Podcast. If we haven't met yet, I'm your host, Kyla Ariel, and I am so grateful that you are here. I'm so grateful that we are just in this space. Today just feels so light. It feels so airy. It feels peaceful, and it's probably our guest who has joined us because she has an aura. She's bringing the peace. I'm so excited to introduce you all today to Nia-Tayler Clark. She is here with us from Maryland. Hailing from Maryland, we were just talking about that, but located obviously in the DFW area. Y'all know we film in Dallas, but I'm excited to have you on the show. She is the founder and CEO of bookstore BLACKLIT. If you are unfamiliar, it is a Black woman-owned and founded bookstore here in Dallas, Texas, and I'm just so excited to dive into this conversation. I'm so excited for my audience to learn more about you, to hear your story, because I think what you are doing is so unique, but it's so solution-oriented and solution-based. And I'm just so grateful that you are here with us today and you are gracing us with your presence on the show. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. It's not every day, unfortunately, we get to merge business and faith together.
Absolutely.
So places like this are my favorite.
Yes. And we're going to dive into all pieces because we were literally just talking before we started rolling, and we were talking about the entrepreneurship journey and how that just looks different for everyone. And I think what is so unique about this space is that the reason that Minor Detail got started is because I felt like there was no blueprint. I felt like there was no blueprint to what happens when you do all of the things, right, that you're supposed to do. You check off the list, whether that be go to school, whether that be, save money, or, outside of getting a good education, you kind of just grow up doing the things that people say are the right things to do, right? But what happens when all of that the dust settles, and you're like, okay, what next? You know, you have passions, maybe what you did go to school for, you're not exactly passionate about, or you can't find a job in this market, what happens next? And so I'm excited to just hear your story because it sounds very unique. It sounds like you didn't necessarily have a blueprint either. Not. And I think that is what people need to hear.
Yeah, I agree. I did not. And I've been in this weird manna season, if you're familiar with that story. Yeah. And I feel like God has been giving me just enough. And as much as I want to complain about it, it forces me to seek him every day in terms of business, being a mom. I don't know what I'm doing, And so I just think just being in this kind of manna season has forced me to just accept the fact that I don't know, but find comfort in the fact that he does.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, listen, we're going to dive right in because you already got us started because I'm hearing all the things. So you are a mother of one, correct?
I am.
You have a son?
Yes.
How old is he?
My son is 7.
Oh, he's getting big.
He's almost my height and he's 7.
Really?
We might have a Olympian.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. He might draw. He loves to draw.
He loves to draw. I love that. Also, we're both tall girls, and I love that too. So we walked in, and I was like, yes, period. I never, it's not every day you come across someone that is your same height. And I think you're also just gorgeous. So,
thank you.
Again, you're gracing us. You're gracing us on the show. But so you have your son. You mentioned you're originally from Maryland. What brought you to Dallas?
I came here. I went to school here.
Okay.
So I went to school for teaching. Other than that, college, you think you're in love, you move across the world. I did that whole thing. And when that fell apart, it was me looking at God, looking at my son, how we gonna figure this out?
Yeah.
What we gonna do? And so as much as I wanted to run back home, because that was, I moved a lot as a kid. And so my comfort was just, I'll just leave. God told me very clearly to stay here.
Wow.
And it has been one of the best things that has ever happened to me. And so I've been here 8 years now, and now this has become home.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's so special too when in the midst of what seems like trial, or in the midst of things not going how you imagined, you really do have a few options. You can sort of embrace that and seek the Lord to provide that answer, or you can just do your own thing and maybe get worse, or, you know, just get a little bit more confusing and unclear. So I love that you had that moment. What was that experience like for you, to just, like to seek the Lord and be like, okay, what now? Is that like through prayer? What was that like?
It felt like I was wrestling with God, to be honest. So much so that I was ready to go, like looking for places, packed. And I will never forget, I called my friend to say bye, like, hey, I'm leaving Dallas, like for real this time. And she's like, okay, I hope you have a safe trip. But I just have one question. Did God tell you to do that? I was like, now you are all different kinds of in my business.
I just got you.
And I was just like, well, actually, no, but he knows this is hard. So I'm sure and at that moment, I realized I had to choose my heart. Like, you know?
Yeah.
And I'll take a God heart any day, any day. And so I literally, I was in a parking lot and I drove my butt right to some apartments. Like, hey, I'm here for a tour. When do you need to move in? 48 hours, because I'm supposed to be going home. And so that's what that experience was like for me. And oftentimes I would find myself almost like once a year, like, oh, is it time to leave yet? Is it time to leave? And he has not given me that green light. And to be honest, I see why. I see why when people walk through the doors of the bookstore, not for me, but just feeling his presence here.
That's
in the same
way
they feel his presence in the bookstore, I feel it here. Like living here, I don't feel alone. I don't feel, it doesn't feel 30 hours away. But the reason I mention 30 hours away is because I have to remind myself, like, of what God is doing here, and that it truly has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with a security net. It has nothing to do with like a big, large family holding me up. It's truly him sustaining us. And I don't ever want to take that for granted.
I mean, you just came in with it. Are we even 5 minutes in the show? Like, what's the timestamp? But seriously, I think that is so good. And man, you just don't even know. Because a lot of times we are carrying that burden. Like, we are carrying the weight of the world. And God is like, it's not supposed to be this way. Like, my burden is easy, my yoke is light.
Absolutely.
You know, I've been reminding myself of that personally, because you know the difference between I'm doing this in my own strength and I'm doing this in his. And when you're doing it in your own strength, it feels like it. It feels like you're carrying, like I said, the weight of the world on your shoulders. And so I'm just grateful for your obedience, you know, not only for your life and your son's life, but also, like you said, for the lives of others, for those that get to come into a physical brick and mortar store and experience something different. And that's what I want to also unpack today, because I know getting from inception to execution or to a physical building, I can imagine it's a world of its own. What was that experience like? How do we even get the idea of opening BLACKLIT and like actually going forward and doing it?
So BLACKLIT, the seed for BLACKLIT was planted by one of my students in class. I was a first year teacher and I was just coming to tell them, like, we have to read this book, y'all. This is what they said. Let's do it. And a kid is like, I don't read Miss, I'm Black. And I'm confused because I'm from Maryland. And there are Black lawyers, there's Black doctors, there's Black readers, there's Black excellence. So I'm confused as to what they are referring to. And at first I think it's a joke. And when the kids in the class start to agree with him, I said, oh, we got a problem.
And what grade is this?
10th grade.
Oh, yeah.
10th grade English. And I'm like, we have got to figure this out. And so very jokingly, but not jokingly, I made them a bet. Like, I'm going to find y'all a book that y'all like to read. Like, we're going to figure this out. And so I found them that book. They ended up reading The Hate You Give. It was a journey for all of us. But at the end, I asked my kids to do a social justice project to find a solution that can solve a problem in the world. And BLACKLIT was my example for them. Like, I just put it on the board, like, you know, like something like this, a subscription box. And so BLACKLIT was designed to get my kids books when they were out of my class so I could mail them books. And they're like, Miss, that's a real business. And I'm just like, huh? Like, not really. Like, I don't actually know what I'm doing. And so the same kids who made the comment, like, I don't read, also planted you can start a business in me. And so I'll forever credit and thank them for that. They were the first ones to wear T-shirts, the first ones to let me take pictures of them fake posing, reading, that kind of thing. And so BLACKLIT was designed to be a subscription box. And rather than just put a book inside of it, I knew half my kids didn't like to read, but I knew they needed to be exposed to Black excellence. And so I wanted to show them that Black people start businesses. And so you got a book, you got a t-shirt, and you got 3 to 5 different products from Black-owned businesses. And when I was looking and doing research, I was having trouble finding some stuff, but it didn't register to me like, hey, something like this really doesn't exist, you know? And so I honestly wasn't going to do it. So much so that when I went to go register the name, they came back and said, no, like you can't do BLACKLIT. There's a business that he sold like black lights or something. And they were like, it's too close. So I'm sitting up at 2:00 in the morning, like, I know God told me to do this.
Right.
I emailed the guy and I say, hey.
Like the LLC, the one, was it an LLC? Okay.
Yeah, and I was like, hey, I really want to start this business. I told him what I wanted to do. By the time I woke up in the morning, he had emailed me back and said, do it. You have my full permission.
Wow.
I sent it to the office and I was like, hey, I guess I can start this business. And so
you gotta make me go across the room and grab a Bible really quickly.
Okay, so BLACKLIT, and mind you, while I send him the email, I'm like writing all these alternative names to BLACKLIT, and it's just like that's not what God said. That's not what he gave me. And sure enough, that guy said, go ahead, use BLACKLIT. And so I was doing it for a little bit. I would travel around Dallas with a table and books. I would just order them off Amazon. I had no idea what I was doing.
Just being obedient.
I had no idea. And then one day, I'm filling out, I think like a grant or something, and they asked me for, I think it's called a SEIC code, some code that I didn't know what it means, and I really still don't, okay? And so I typed in the top book subscription boxes to find what they use, because we were in the same category. And the link I clicked was Oprah, top subscription boxes, and why was BLACKLIT on there? That was me in the middle of the night. And I was like, I called my friend, I'm like, I think Oprah. I called my mom, like, I think I'm. And I was like, okay, this might be a real thing. And so,
had you seen any like spikes in business from Oprah sharing that, or like you literally just?
At the time, I had like 50-ish subscribers. Okay. I posted and reshared that we were on Oprah. Almost had 1,000 subscribers overnight.
Girl,
mind you, I'm a single mom, far away from home. I just got a teaching job. Like, I'm in this teeny 1-bedroom apartment. How am I going to get out 1,000 boxes? I was barely trying to figure out 50. I'm just ordering products from Amazon, trying to make it work. I literally had to turn my 1-bedroom into BLACKLIT.
Wow.
And move the bed for me and my son out in the living room, and we would just pack boxes, roll them down in like one of those little wagons from Walmart, take it to the post office. And I think that was the beginning of like are we going to do this or are we not? Are we going to trust God or are we not?
Oh, girl, I got to stop you there. Because it's, man, so good. Like so many gems in that story, from literally you wanting to be a solution for your students. Like, I'm thinking you wanted to be a solution for something bigger, but it just started with having a heart for students that obviously were having challenges with reading, right? We talk about the literacy gap and how that has really increased in America. And we were talking about this before, but I'm from Chicago as well. So that same reaction you would have had, or you did have, I feel like with students is something I would have had, because I felt like I did grow up being able to see people that looked like me, you know, sort of doing things that were not your ordinary role for someone of color or a Black person just in general. And I think that that's so amazing that you're one of those teachers that wanted to try and wanted to be a solution to a problem, but then it planted a seed within you. And God is like, this is just a part of the journey, you know, because you could have left from the very beginning. And none of this would have even existed. You know what I mean? And I just think that that's so kind, but not everybody is able to just go through the long suffering, because that's what it kind of looks like in the beginning, right? And then 50 subscribers, one of them being someone in Oprah's camp. You never know who's watching.
At all.
You never know who's watching. Like, that's literally what I heard. And a lot of times we feel like we're not hitting the mark. We're not hitting the numbers. You know, we want more revenue or more followers or more views. And it's like, you just never know who's looking. And when God is going to open a door, he's going to open it.
Yeah.
And it's going to be seamless.
And you mentioned kind, and it's like that whole situation showed me the kindness of God and how he used something where, like, to be honest, I put myself in such a horrible, situation.
That's real.
And just in his kindness to see like how he would use it, not just for my good, but for so many other people that he's touched, the way he's like protected my son through it all, even like people we don't know, even this conversation here, it's like when you're going through things, you don't anticipate how it's going to be a testimony. Right now, it's just annoying at the time, and
it's just something you're doing.
Yeah. And I just think him and his kindness, he sees the bigger picture in ways we could never.
Yeah. That's so good.
So yeah,
I love your perspective. I feel like oftentimes I don't come across people who share that same perspective, and whether it be through the lens of gratitude or just understanding that there's a bigger picture. I was talking to a friend yesterday and just sharing my heart and how sometimes I'm like, when we're in seasons of waiting or we're in seasons of long suffering, we really do have two choices. It's like embrace what the Lord is trying to do in our lives and surrender and submit to that, or you complain and sometimes maybe even create a little bit of delay for yourself. And you mentioned earlier, you talked about being in a manna season, and that the entire premise of that story is like Moses was leading the Israelites through the wilderness and they were being disobedient. And so instead of God, expediting what should have been a very short stint, he didn't necessarily take them out of it, but he still provided. And I think that that's, again, it shows the kindness of God. But we have that choice of whether or not we want to embrace it or we want to be disgruntled and miss what could actually be going on in this season. And sis, you really did embrace it because you got to work. And also, and I know you're going to get into COVID, that's where we can pick it back up. But when you're talking about the LLC name too, that I'm just like, I just chills on chills because when his hand is on something, it's going to happen.
I know he gave me the name BLACKLIT. For me at first, it was like Black and literate. Like I wanted my kids to know they could be both, but I was going to space them out. And he very clearly was like, no, it's supposed to be together. And I couldn't figure it out. I've been wrestling like, why is it that important? And when I think of it and how I wanted BLACKLIT to be a reminder to my kids that they can be Black and literate, or Black and whatever they wanted to do. But it has just been like a reminder for me that there's one way I'm going to do this, okay? With God. The other way, to separate the two, to complete, because when I started, people told me to separate. Like, I'm sorry, I don't even know if we're going, but this is something I wanted to tell you.
We gotta do it.
Told me to separate it, like leave God out of it. So much so that I had a fiction box, a nonfiction box, and I had a believers box. And they were like, Nia, like you need to take that off. Like the whole like Oprah thing, the whole path you're going, like that'll mess it up. You need to keep God out of it. I'm like, how? Like, do you know how hard it is for me to get out of bed? For me to get up and put my clothes? Do you know that, like, the prayer is the reason I'm sitting here? Like, I'm confused.
Girl.
And so it's just a reminder for me that we're going to do this one way. And that's together with him. We're not going to separate it. And so just to even be sitting here on this podcast and getting to talk about both, for me, is such a beautiful reminder that in the chaos of it all, like, he's so present. He's so present. So intentional.
Girl,
and
I can't even.
I'm just like, wow.
Oh, you are special. I love you so much. Seriously. And I don't know where we are. Y'all, we had to pause for a second, but this is so organic. So it is what it is. That's what people need to see. You know what I mean? Like, we live such double lives sometimes. Even as believers, sometimes we feel like we have to separate who we are in our faith and like who we are in the masses, you know what I mean? Like in front of people. And what for me is so special about this platform, especially coming into this year, is I just felt the tug to your point, to combine. Like women can need resources and encouragement but also receive, the word of God, or also be able to operate in a space, or also be introduced to who Jesus is, if it's your first time, and it not be this taboo thing. Like, to your point, I do not operate a single day of my life without being spirit-led, without, submitting to the Lord first, because none of this is our doing. Like, God is literally the creator of the universe. You know what I mean? Like, not leave it to the universe. No, he's the creator of the universe and everything in it. And so we worship the creator for that reason. And I think people, they look at your journeys or our journeys or your story and are inspired and want to get to that point. And a lot of times it's like back to that blueprint conversation. It's like, okay, what is the blueprint? Like, what are the keys? I just want to apply this to what I'm inspired by or what I'm passionate about. And it's like, no, you have to walk through it.
Yeah.
And to be able to walk through it and excel and succeed oftentimes means leaning on the Lord. You try to do it in your own strength, like we mentioned before. And sure, it might be successful, but you get back to that space of void, right? Like, there will always be a piece of you that sort of feels like something is missing. I had a young lady on a few weeks ago. We had a great conversation, but on the topic of like finance. And she was talking about how she had made her first $1 million and felt the most empty she'd ever felt in life, right? And a lot of times people imagine, oh, money will fix it. Money will solve all my problems. And we know that is not the truth. And so I love that you shared that, because to be separate from God is, to perish.
0 out of 10. You would not recommend.
And you said earlier, like, you choose your hard.
Yeah.
You either you just going through and you doing it on your own and it's really hard, or you doing it with the Lord and at least the burden just feels a little bit lighter.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think on the journey for entrepreneurship or even just life, it's easy to get so caught up in God's hand and wanting his hand to be on you. And I think what this journey has taught me the most is, rather than seeking God's hand, seek the character of God. And that is honestly what helps me during those rocky times, because it's like when you think you know him, you can know him a little bit more, a little bit better in such a new way. And so I remember seasons where I wasn't able to see God as like a father. I thought God was like the one that brought the judgment and the punishment, and Jesus was sweet. And I had to learn like the lion and the lamb, like both. And then also seeing God as kind, like how you mentioned before. Like, I'm just now entering a season where I can see God as friend and how kind he is and just how gentle he is. But at the same time, not ignoring what the wrath of God looks like. And so I just encourage anybody who is seeking the hand of God and not seeing what they want to see, seek his character, because it'll remind you that his hand is just a smidge of what he can do. It's just a touch of, like, his hand is amazing, but his character, his faith, like, that is where the change happens. And that'll cause you to walk in rooms and realize his hand is on you.
It's on me, and it's always been. And, to that point about character, because I'm in a similar season of really learning and believing it in my heart, right? Because I think it's a difference to know it. Versus like believing in that and walking in that. But it's immutable. It never changes, right? So we are such up and down, moody people, right? Like, we are not who we say we are. One day it's like, I'm happy, everything is going great. And the next is like, this sucks, and that's okay, because we're human and that's what human is being about. But to know that we serve a God who is never changing. I did something crazy, 2 weeks ago, and you don't hate me for it. Like, that's the father piece, I understand that it takes everyone to learn that in their own journey. But once you do get there, I do think that you walk a little lighter in that as well.
And I feel like as a woman, we constantly search for like security. And to different people, it means different things. But for me, just the ability to be as strong as I am and as weak as I am in any capacity at any moment, I can do that with God.
You can. You sure
and like
can.
he has enough space for it. Like, he's got enough for my weakness and got enough for my strengths, and it's just like you walk a little bit different. And think people need to know there's no magic trick for that. There's no business blueprint. You don't read that in a book. You like get that in its presence.
And literally the only book.
Yeah.
The one and only book. But to your point,
You,
and the intimacy and consistency.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's so good. Okay, well, we were talking about the box to the building, but we
the
had to
box to
have
the building. I'm so
that
sorry.
conversation. We had to have that conversation because I think it's so important, and I do want to in this conversation get to how like what your spiritual journey, what your faith walk has looked like, because you are so grounded, and I love that because I'm sure you cannot do what you're doing without it. But like you said, it was around COVID.
It was around COVID, and they wanted all teachers to go back into the classroom. And I'm like, okay now. And this was when everybody was uncertain. We don't know what this is. And so I took the faith leap. I went and did BLACKLIT full time. And it was very scary. So much so that when school opened back up and the world decided, okay, this is all right, we're a little more comfortable, I went back to teaching. That was an act of disobedience by far. And when I tell you, I did not have the same experience. It was like a nightmare. Like I felt like a fish out of water. Like what is happening?
Same school?
I went to a different school.
Okay, gotcha.
I went to a different school, but it was better circumstances, to be honest. Like it should have been, it looked better on paper. It looked safer on paper. That security we were just talking about, that's what I was searching for. I'm like, how am I supposed to pay my bills doing this business full time? Like, because mind you, I was so new in business. My boxes used to cost $29.99, just for full transparency. It would cost me almost $40 to make each box.
Oh,
mind
wow.
you, I had just got 1,000 subscribers. How do you pay for that? How do you communicate that to people? There's no email team. There's no customer service. There's no like CFO to handle all this stuff. It's just people looking at you like you're crazy. And I'm just like, so I literally, when I stopped teaching, I took out my retirement to go fill out those orders. Mind you, I had only been teaching like 3 years. What retirement? Like, what? So I'm just like, I know I'm supposed to make this work. So anyways, when I finally got enough guts to just, we're not going backwards. We're just going to stop here. I stopped teaching. I transitioned to a warehouse. And I wanted my classroom back. And I felt like God had called me to teach. Like I felt like,
that's good.
I just felt like as important as it was to me, as much as God did to nurture it, he wouldn't just strip it away.
Yeah.
Not with bad intentions.
Nope.
Not with, and I just wanted to know how are you going to use this? I'm confused. And I would drive to the warehouse and I would park in this like underdeveloped kind of neighborhood, and I would sit and kind of pray and gather my thoughts. And I would do that often before I went to pick up my son. And one day I got the guts to call the number on the window. And that's where BLACKLIT now sits.
Wow. Oh.
And so how I'm in that building, I still have no idea. Because the questions they were asking me, the contracts, I didn't know. But I literally called and was like, is this building available? You know? And I really wanted to just I wanted my classroom back. But for so many different reasons, in a sense. Like I didn't want to be cooped up in a warehouse. And I felt like I understood now that I wasn't just doing business, I was ready to do ministry with this.
That's so good.
And so I got the building. And by get the building, I mean, I just had the keys. No furniture, no books to fill the bookshelves, literally nothing. And so before I had a grand opening, I'll be forever grateful for my friends because we had a prayer walk. So before there was any furniture, we walked in there and we covered that place in prayer. And I think that was the beginning. When you talk about grounded in business, that was the beginning for me. That was when I was able to see what it looks like to not have the strength to pray for yourself, but to have a community that will cover you in that. Amen. And that was my prayer in that season. Like, God, if you want me to keep doing this, like, I need you to know I can't keep doing it by myself. Like, good. You know, and like, I know you're here, but I need community here. Like, my son is getting older. I don't have the same security in a job. Like, I prayed for community. And so just to see them pray those prayers when I couldn't pray them, it was just like, wow. So from that moment forward, to be honest, I felt like that place was covered. Like, it's safe. It made me walk in there and unlock the doors with a different level of audacity, to be honest. And so that was the beginning for BLACKLIT. Furniture got in there gradually. Books got in there gradually.
Yeah.
I just remember taking my apartment and literally putting my apartment furniture in the bookstore so people could come and have some place to sit.
Yeah.
And just looking at God like, what are you about to do?
Yeah.
And just to go back and look at it all, BLACKLIT is the first and only bookstore in the city of Farmers Branch.
Wow.
I didn't plan that. I didn't grow up in Farmers Branch. I didn't know it needed that. I had no idea. BLACKLIT was the first monthly subscription box to exclusively highlight Black authors and entrepreneurs. I didn't know. I didn't plan it. That was not on my vision board, like none of that.
Yeah.
And so I'm just a part of it, to be honest. Like
That's so good.
I'm just a small, very small part of it.
Yeah. And as you're speaking, I'm like, you are just so dependent. Like, that is so good. And I'm like, I wish I could articulate it how I feel it, but to be dependent is so hard, especially when you are someone that likes to be in control or have all the answers, i.e. me. I'm talking to myself, like when God places you in a season of dependency, and it's not about your gain, it's about his mission and his call. You just, like you said, you're a part of it. You're not really calling the shots, but you're being obedient and continuing to take steps forward, even when you can't see. I swear, like I have been saying, I feel like I'm in a season where my eyes are closed and I'm just like feeling around, like, are we good? Like I'm blindfolded, but he's there every step of the way. And I just love how you, like, there is a new development. Each step you take, a new development. And grateful for community too, because we are literally all members of one body, but we can't do this alone. And I just think it's so special that you have people to lift you up in a really hard time.
And time and time again,
yeah,
to be honest, like, yes, with the prayer walk, but I don't know if you know that a couple months after opening BLACKLIT, I went Saturday morning ready to open up the store. Couldn't, my son was sick. So if I had a friend go, not an employee, I still didn't have employees. I had a friend go, just like, Nia, we can't get in. There's an eviction notice on the door. Everything's like locked up. I was like, what? like, what do you mean? Right? And at this point, let me rewind to give you context for this.
Okay.
Before there was ever an eviction notice on BLACKLIT's door, I'll never forget that the same year I decided to transition to BLACKLIT full-time, the day before Mother's Day, so it was a Saturday, they knocked on the door and gave me and my son an eviction notice for our apartment. And I was like, I only don't have a job, Lord, because this was your bright idea.
Right.
Like I was paying my bills with teaching. Teaching don't pay the much, but I was on time.
Right.
Like I felt like a responsible adult. We were getting it done. I got up with the little bit of strength I had to go to church that Sunday morning. It was Mother's Day, mind you.
Right.
What an awful day to feel like less of a mom, because that's what I felt like.
Yeah.
And the pastor said, can I have all the single moms stand up? I said, no, you got a lot of nerve to embarrass me in here like this. Because it's just like the shame that you felt.
I was another thing.
I'm like, I'm not standing up. Like, he asked the second time. I'm like, Lord, you're just going to have to pretend we in a relationship because I'm not standing up as a single mom.
Yeah.
I stood up. That pastor gave me the exact amount I needed for my rent, plus the ice cream money that my kid asked for the day before in the middle of my tears. So that was my first notice. And
What
I watched
was this?
God
Can you share?
Social Dallas.
Okay. Amen.
And I was like, okay. So now let's fast forward to the notice that was on BLACKLIT's door. Now,
I mean, if you share another testimony, Nia, we're gonna have to stop. I'm trying. I hope y'all who are watching are like, God is real. He's real.
And mind you, when we talk about the character of God, I never knew God to be a provider.
Okay.
Which is why
Jehovah Jireh.
I felt like I worked so hard. I had this independence. It was just like I didn't see him that way. Like I knew he could like keep me safe and be a protector, but I didn't know him as the provider, right? So that happened. Then we got the eviction notice at BLACKLIT. I'm like, now not deja vu on a whole bigger scale, because now people are calling me like the doors are locked. I had nothing left to give. Like my son is over here sick. I literally made a quick post like, guys, I'm sorry. I tried to open up a bookstore. It didn't work. Like I tried. I prayed. I literally posted that, prayed myself to sleep. When I tell you I woke up, it was like over $15,000 raised.
Wow.
I said, how? There's no link. Like, what did you guys do? Like, what did...
Not 1,500, 15,000, one
now,
five,
mind
comma.
you, a crowdfunding page that I set up almost 2 years before that didn't get... that people were not donating to. They found that link and they were going to do that. And I thought, I was so mad at God for having me set that up. Like, this is wasting my time. Like, I didn't get money for a bookstore. So I'm like in awe, right? It just keeps coming. It keeps coming. I'm like, oh. Then I get, this was really, I felt like the turning point for me. I'm like on Instagram watching all this stuff. Like at this point, it's like almost going viral. And somebody from what looks like a spam page sends me a message. And it's like, I would like to donate $10,000. How do I send it? And I sent it to my friend like this things
real?
are going good, but you think this is a scam? Like, this is like, are you sure?
Yeah.
And she was like, that is a scam. Don't you answer? I felt like I was supposed to answer,
Yeah, you felt
right?
that,
You
yeah.
know how I just felt like I'm supposed to answer. So I answered, I sent it to them. Less than 30 minutes later, $10,000 had came quick. And for me, it wasn't about the amount. It was about knowing that when God moves, he can move at any given
Suddenly.
time, at any, like
Speed.
suddenly.
Yeah.
Suddenly. And I
Yeah.
was just like, so I went from an eviction notice to over $40,000 raised by a community to help sustain a bookstore. I had no idea. And like, here I am wrestling with myself and with God. Like, I'm not qualified for this. I don't know how to run a bookstore. I don't have retail experience. Like, I just play basketball and decided to be a teacher.
Yeah.
Like, what exactly are you doing? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it was just like, I felt like he gave me one job, and that was to be dependent on him. So when you talk about like the dependency, at first it was because I had no choice. Now I wouldn't want it any other way. Like I seen what it looked like to not. And like, yeah, God has been showing out with BLACKLIT in ways I could never. And so when I just want everybody to know, when you see BLACKLIT, please don't see Nia-Tayler. Like, I hope you see God's hand all over that, because that's not me.
Well, this has been a great conversation. I mean, like, I'm blown out of the water. And, you know, obviously we know testimonies are so powerful. They're such an important part of this journey. We are supposed to share, but like, genuinely, I hope y'all are moved as we are. Like, the way my skin is raised and has not, like, normally I can kind of gather myself. I have not been able to for like the last 15 minutes because I'm like, God, first of all, you're here, number one, in this room, you know, but the fact that he's just been moving with you so intentionally, again, there are so many things in life that can grab our attention, can distract us. And obviously, no one's perfect. I'm not saying that your journey has just been locked in and you know what I mean? Like you wake up, go to sleep, all things Jesus, right? But it's that relationship piece, I think, it can be hard to cultivate, whether it be you struggle with striving and needing to earn God's love, or just not, taking the time to build that intimacy. Like, your story, I'm just like, you're chosen. Like, that is literally what I feel in this moment. And I just think it's so special because, again, none of this is about us. And the fact that you can even say, like, if you see BLACKLIT, please don't see me, see the Lord. I think that that's so special because that is literally what we're here to do. We're here to have fellowship, intimacy, and to glorify, edify his name. And I'm just grateful. I'm grateful that you are here. I'm grateful that you are doing that. This is so necessary and supposed to happen because obviously if y'all live in Dallas, please go patronize the store, like 100%. Because I think the way that everything has been able to merge together and be so intricately woven, I think is special because, again, it's a perception thing. We might see the store and think that's super dope, like Black owned, Black woman owned. I'm sure a lot of the authors you carry in the store are people of color, Black people.
All of them.
All of them? Mm-hmm. Wow. Again, so special. Like, creating this space for Black people to thrive, for the literacy gap to be addressed, but also for God to be present. Like, those things don't have to be separate. My mind is just like, it's being blown as I'm talking, and I'm just like, they don't have to be separate.
And I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until like days where I like can barely get out of bed and get there. It's like I need my worship music to go throughout the day. And so I would play it in the store.
Yeah.
Sometimes down low. And it's just like, why? Why do I have to turn it down? And now it's so funny because now people come in and sometimes they expect it.
Yeah.
Or like people talk about it. And I'm just like, Lord, you have a funny way of like just smiling and like giving us those winks. I call it like my God winks.
Yeah.
Like when we need them. And he's given me so many of those with BLACKLIT. From, I'm talking some days all I could do was show up. Like not even turn on the lights, not even just show up. And the woman, she's somewhere in Dallas. So if you ever watch this, thank you. Because I couldn't tell you thank you in between my tears that day.
Oh.
But she walked in and my lights were off. And she was like, I'm just here because God told me to tell you you're supposed to be here. And she left. And she was just looking at, they just came so quickly, like my tears. And I was just like, that's what I call like a God wink. Like you can't, like, sometimes you just need those. Like his kind. And you keep saying it. And I feel like that's what God is trying to show me in this season, that he truly is kind.
He is.
He truly is kind.
He loves us and cares about us. And I'm not about to cry on this podcast, but it's every time you open your mouth, you give me a reason.
Even this podcast, I think, is also a display of God's kindness, to be honest. Because I told you, like so many people, they want you to separate the two. And as you get bigger, they want you to separate the two even more. And it's just like, no.
Let this be my declaration. Okay, today, I don't even know today. We're not doing it. It's not happening. Okay, it won't ever be separated because the way that the Lord has picked me up off of the ground this year, okay, you go through things and you're like, it won't happen because you know. Now I'm gonna get emotional. But you know who was there. And it's so special. And these are like tears of joy. And I'm like, how did we get here in the conversation? But we're not editing it out because you know who was there. And I'm like, it's so real. I just want people to believe it, you know? And your story is so special and it's encouraging me. But also I want people to be encouraged because I'm like, listen, all you got to do is just open your heart. It does not have to be hard. You don't have to be alone. Thank you. You're already chosen and you're qualified because, like we were saying earlier, like you're not qualified because of your intellect or what you know. You're qualified because he called you, you know? And it's just like, how could I ever turn my back on that? You know, when literally, like you're saying, you said so many times, I couldn't even get up.
I don't think people understand how real that was my real that was my real story.
Yeah. Like I could not even get up, or just being in my prayer closet and getting to those points where your thoughts are like louder than anything. And you're just like, Jesus, I just need you to come in so I know that you're real. And everything is just like peace. I'm sorry. That's not me. That's not my intellect. That's not my brain. That's not my wisdom. No. So I just love this, and I just thank you for, like, this is supposed to happen today. Like, literally this whole week, there's been so many things happening, not bad or anything, but I've just been giving it to God. You know what I mean? Like, oh, small inconvenience, here you go. Or, oh, we're filming and we're starting early, cool. Like, you know, it's just, like you said earlier, it allows you to walk lighter. And I'm just grateful. So I'm like, where do we go?
I think we go to prayer.
Yes.
Just for the person listening who it's heavy. If you don't mind.
Yeah, no,
but
for sure.
I just
That's been on my mind the entire time. Yeah.
Like the walk gets heavy. It gets heavy, it gets lonely, it gets confusing. And I just think we have a time now to just invite God into those seasons. So if you don't mind, I would just like to go to God and I just pray that you, dear God, we want to thank you for meeting us where we were. And we want to pray for the young woman, the young man, dear God, who needs you in this moment right now to make it a little lighter. We pray that you meet them exactly where they are, come into their situation, flip it over supernaturally like only you can, dear God, and give them a peace that surpasses all understanding, dear God. Show them your kindness, show them your love, and remind them, dear God, before you've given them a job, you have loved them. You love them. Again, dear God, you love them exactly how they are. And I pray, dear God, that they're able to see your heart, that they're able to see your kindness, that they're able to see your hand, not just in what you have to give, dear God, but in your ability to hold them and your ability to comfort them and your ability to meet every need and your ability to see them, dear God, through all the ugly and even into all of the pretty too, dear God. We thank you for what you're doing on this podcast and just where you're taking it in the next levels. We pray that prayer will be a first response, not just for us, dear God, but for this community, for this podcast, for where we're headed, dear God. We need you, we love you, and we just thank you for the opportunity to do it with you. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. This has been so special. I don't even know where we are time-wise. Normally I'm like tracking, but it's just been so special. And I feel like this is exactly what the conversation needed to be. For those of y'all listening in, listen, thank you. I am a vulnerable person behind the scenes. I'm not one to cry on the internet, but clearly that's what the Lord needed to happen today. And so I'm not ashamed by any means, but that is a real move. That is a real, to just be overcome by the love of God is what that is. And I'm just so grateful for you. I'm so grateful for you joining us. I'm so grateful for your yes, your obedience, and all that you're doing. I pray that God continues to carry you and continue to make the load lighter. I pray for your peace of mind and just your ability to trust in him, that he will continue to show up no matter what. I pray that it does genuinely get lighter and that you get to experience abundance, not for your own good, but just for the good of the Lord, right? Like for you to be able to rest easy in this time, being a single mother, being able to introduce your son to things that you wouldn't have otherwise been able to do, whether that's travel the world or a new school or living in a new place, but just continuing to just be that nurturing. You know, you have that like nurturing spirit about you, but continuing to carry that with you to walk light and not allow the world to change who you are. And so I'm just so grateful. And I thank you so much for being here. For those of y'all watching, again, thank you for listening in. Until next episode, we might have to get Nia back. We might have to take this to BLACKLIT or something. We might have to do a part 2. But
live. Y'all want to come see it? That would be nice. We could have a girls chat.
Yes. The first Minor Detail podcast live recording. It might be coming soon. Sitting near you, aka Dallas, because we're not going anywhere else right now. So for those of y'all are in Dallas, but again, thank you so much for listening. Please do not forget to share this conversation with someone if it has touched your heart. I can only imagine who else will need to hear this. If you are watching on YouTube, do not forget to subscribe. We are building community around here. Retention is so important to me because I am committed to your life. That is what the Lord has placed me here to do. We'll talk soon. Bye.